Have you ever imagined being tortured without anyone laying a finger on you? It sounds impossible, but in reality, this was one of the cruelest and most effective techniques ever devised. The water drop torture left no marks on the body, but dismantled the minds of its victims, driving them to the brink of despair. In this video, we dive into the dark history of this terrifying psychological practice. How did it work? Why was it so effective? And what does it teach us about the power of the mind in enduring pain? Stay until the end to find out. Origins and history of water drop torture. Water drop torture, also known as Chinese water torture, in some cultures, emerged as a psychological technique during medieval times, though its exact origins remain unclear. Unlike brutal methods such as the rack or the iron chair, this practice stood out by targeting the mind instead of the body. The concept was simple yet devastating. The victim was restrained, unable to move, while cold water droplets fell at regular intervals on their forehead. At first, it seemed tolerable, almost harmless. But as hours or even days passed, the cumulative effect of repetition became unbearable, often leading the victim to mental collapse, delusions, hallucinations, and even confessions to crimes they did not commit. How did the torture work? The secret of water drop torture lay in its relentless monotony. The victim was positioned on a stone or wooden surface, typically bound with straps or ropes to prevent any movement. The water would drip, drop by drop, directly onto the center of their forehead, always in the same spot. Why was this so cruel? The combination of constancy and unpredictability created profound psychological terror. The sound of the falling drops became deafening, and the anticipation of the next drop generated unbearable mental anguish. Over time, the sensation of impact on the forehead intensified, feeling like physical blows, and the lack of mental respite led to complete nervous system exhaustion. Moreover, the environment in which this torture was carried out heightened the suffering. Victims were usually left alone in cold, dark spaces, intensifying feelings of isolation and despair. The effect on the victim's mind. The true weapon of this torture was its devastating effect on the psyche. Initially, victims might try to focus, ignore the drops, or distract themselves with thoughts. But as time passed, discomfort turned to pain, and pain morphed into mental agony. The human mind is wired to seek patterns and predictability. The repetitive sound of the drops, combined with the constant impact, created unsustainable psychological tension. This often led to nervous breakdowns, crying fits, and, in many cases, hallucinations and a loss of time and reality. Many accounts suggest that those subjected to this torture were willing to confess to anything, real or fabricated, just to make the torment stop. Water drop torture in historical context. Although this technique is often associated with medieval times, its application has been observed across various periods and cultures. During the Middle Ages, it was primarily used to extract confessions or punish individuals accused of serious crimes. Interestingly, the method also gained notoriety in more modern contexts, being employed during psychological interrogations. Its simplicity made it an efficient tool for regimes seeking to break the mental resistance of prisoners without leaving visible signs of violence. What does this teach us about psychology? Water drop torture is not just an example of humanity's capacity for cruelty. It also reveals how vulnerable the human mind is to subtle and persistent attacks. This technique teaches us that it's often not the physical impact that destroys a person, but the mental and emotional pressure. Today, we may not face medieval torture, but daily stress, social isolation, or psychological pressure can have similar effects on our mental health. The story of water drop torture serves as a grim reminder of the importance of caring for our mental well-being and not underestimating the impact of psychological pain. Closing and engagement. Water drop torture shows us that suffering doesn't have to be visible to be devastating. It's a reminder of how powerful psychology can be, for both good and harm. If you found this story as disturbing as it is fascinating, share this video with your friends and leave a comment with your thoughts on this form of torture. Do you think you could withstand water drop torture? Let's discuss in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more impactful stories like this. See you next time.